At this narrow excavation site, a worker steps onto a flimsy board beside a mini excavator. Almost immediately, the timber gives way. Never use unsecured scrap materials, thin wood, or brittle bamboo to cover or bridge an open trench. In this busy loading area, a worker carrying a heavy bamboo bundle climbs onto a tiny plastic stool to reach a pickup bed. The stool suddenly becomes unstable under the load. Never use an improvised object such as a plastic stool or bucket as a step-up during loading work. This creates a serious stability and contact hazard, especially when the load shifts and the worker loses balance. To prevent this, workers should use heavy-duty loading steps, engineered ramps, or industrial A-frame ladders when accessing elevated truck beds. Large or awkward bundles should also be handled by at least 2 people, so the weight can be controlled properly. At this wastewater excavation, a worker steps onto a loose concrete slab. Within moments, the slab shifts unexpectedly over the deep trench. Never walk across temporary concrete plates, decking, or slabs placed over an excavation unless both ends are fully supported and the surface has been secured against movement. An unanchored slab can shift or tip the moment a person's weight passes beyond its support point, turning it into a serious access hazard. Inside this metal yard, a worker stands on a sealed drum while using a cutting torch overhead. Then sparks ignite vapors inside, creating a sudden incident. Never use a sealed or unverified drum as a makeshift step stool, and never perform hot work near closed chemical containers that have not been purged and ventilated. Even a drum that appears empty may still contain ignitable vapor, making it a serious fire hazard if exposed to sparks or intense heat. Before welding or cutting, workers must clear the area of drums, tanks, and other containers that may hold combustible residue. If elevation is needed, they should use a certified ladder, scaffold, or work platform instead of improvised objects. Inside this warehouse room, a worker is pulling a hand truck backward toward an unguarded freight elevator opening. Focused on the load, he moves directly into the exposed opening area. Never pull a cart or hand truck backward without a clear line of sight, and never leave an elevator opening exposed without a proper gate, barrier, or interlock system. Moving in reverse while handling a load greatly increases the risk of stepping into an unprotected edge. Facility managers should install self-closing safety gates or mechanical interlocks that block access whenever the elevator car is not present. Workers should also push carts whenever possible so they can keep the path ahead in view. On this busy highway, a brick-loaded cargo truck swerves hard to avoid stop traffic. The sudden maneuver causes the load to shift and the vehicle to become unstable. Never drive a commercial truck too fast while carrying a heavy, high-centered load, and never make a sudden high-speed swerve to recover from poor braking distance. A top-heavy vehicle can quickly become unstable, causing the load to shift and the driver to lose control. Drivers carrying dense or stacked materials should reduce speed, leave much more space ahead, and anticipate traffic changes early. At this facility gate, a biker tries to pass directly in front of an idling cement mixer. In a brief moment, the rider moves into the truck's blind area. Never pass closely in front of heavy commercial equipment, and never assume the operator can see you just because the vehicle appears stopped. Large trucks and industrial machines often have major blind spots directly in front of the cab. Pedestrians, cyclists, and riders should keep a wide distance from large vehicles and wait until the vehicle has fully cleared the area before crossing. They should only proceed when they are clearly visible to the operator and ideally after direct eye contact. The safest assumption is that the driver cannot see anyone near the front bumper. In this front yard, a homeowner pushes a gas-powered lawnmower across the grass. Then the machine suddenly begins showing signs of mechanical failure. Never operate a gas-powered mower or similar machine if it shows signs of overheating, fuel leakage, or mechanical failure. A damaged fuel system can turn an ordinary machine into a serious fire hazard. Operators should inspect small engines before use, checking for cracked fuel lines, leaks, unusual smells, or irregular engine behavior. If a machine sputters, runs too hot, or smells strongly of gasoline, it should be shut off immediately and taken out of service. Combustible fuel and heat should never be ignored. On this flatbed trailer, 2 workers try to guide a suspended bundle of steel rebar by hand. Without notice, the crane rigging fails and the load shifts into the work area. Never stand under or right beside a suspended load, and never try to control tons of moving material with bare hands. Suspended loads can shift suddenly, and rigging equipment can fail without advance warning, creating an immediate impact hazard. Workers should use properly sized tag lines to guide loads from a safe distance while keeping clear of the exclusion zone. Slings, cables, chains, and lifting hardware must also be inspected carefully before every lift. No one can physically restrain an unstable or swinging load once the rigging gives way. On this warehouse floor, 2 workers turn a forklift into an unsafe improvised ride, but the moment the setup shifts, the slings slide off the forks. Never use forklifts, lifting slings, or industrial equipment to raise, carry, or suspend people unless the equipment is specifically designed and approved for personnel lifting. Improvised setups can shift unexpectedly and lead to a dangerous loss of balance. Workplaces should enforce a strict ban on horseplay and unsafe misuse of industrial machinery. Operators must understand that slings require proper attachment points and that forklift forks are not a safe substitute for an approved personnel platform. Inside this auto repair shop, a mechanic yanks an air hose across the floor. In seconds, it triggers movement that causes a storage rack to become unstable. Never leave tall, heavy shelving units freestanding without anchoring them securely to a wall or floor. Unstable shelving can shift from a surprisingly small impact, especially in cluttered work areas. Managers should make sure all vertical storage systems are bolted to solid supports and inspected regularly for stability. Workers should also keep floors clear by storing tools properly and managing hoses, cords, and other tripping hazards. In this storage yard, a worker stands beside a freestanding brick wall as a dump truck reverses into place. One light contact is enough to destabilize the wall. Never stand within the hazard zone of an unreinforced wall or freestanding structure while heavy equipment is moving nearby. Even minor contact from a reversing vehicle can destabilize unsafe masonry and create a severe contact hazard. Ground workers should maintain a wide exclusion zone around moving vehicles and any nearby structures that could give way if struck. Drivers should use trained spotters when reversing or maneuvering in tight spaces, especially near walls, fences, or debris-prone surfaces. A structure may appear solid, but it should never be trusted once heavy machinery is operating close to it. In this narrow alley, a worker carries a heavy AC unit up a ladder on a makeshift platform. Then the entire setup becomes unstable. Never place an extension ladder on temporary scaffolding, mobile platforms, or loose planks to gain extra height. Ladders exert strong downward and lateral force at the base when weight shifts near the top. If that base rests on an unstable platform, the entire setup can become unstable under load. Technicians should position ladders only on solid level ground and use aerial lifts or boom trucks when the working height exceeds the ladder's safe reach. Heavy equipment such as AC condenser units should be hoisted with proper lifting systems instead of being carried up ladders.